keyword citizen, global citizen. I'm Ashwati from DIIT, and let me officially welcome our respected speaker of the day, Dr. K. Lakshmi Narasimhas, who has searched to impart his knowledge on the topic, learning English as a foreign language, a persistent pedagogical concern. He is one of the top educators in India qualified to talk about ELT. I also welcome all the eminent delegates who are taking time out of their schedule to participate in this activity, as well as my colleagues who are coordinating as well as participating. This is a great occasion for us to acquire more knowledge in a pertinent topic. Without further ado, let me introduce today's spokesperson to all of you. He is a familiar figure to most of us, but for those who don't know him, Dr. P. Lakshmi Narasimhasu is an assistant professor of English at SRR and CVR Government Degree College in Vijayawada, Andhra Pradesh. He is one of the best known scholars in the field of ELT and an exceedingly skillful person in this area. He teaches communication skills and soft skills, English grammar, language, and literature. He is also well versed in theoretical and practical knowledge about voice and accent training. His linguistic skills are noteworthy. He is outstanding in articulatory and acoustic phonetics and good at analyzing speech segments, rhythm, and intonation to craft. He is also experienced in analyzing languages through the systemic functional linguistics. His philosophical and literary analysis of poetry are worth mentioning, and they are on par in translation skills. He was awarded PhD in English in the research area Linguistics and Phonetics in 2016. His research topic was the study of Telugu intonation, English intonation, which is Telugu intonation, a study through analyzing meaning, grammar, and acoustic properties of speech groups. He has presented papers in several international and national venues. His international papers include Intonation of Telugu and Telugu English presented in the 38th International Systemic Functional Congress held in the University of Lisbon, Portugal. Attitudinal meaning and intonation in English and Telugu presented in the 40th International Systemic Functional Congress held in the Sun Yat-sen University, Guangzhou, China. Contextual determination of meaning of certain verbs presented in 5-day International Student Workshop cum seminar organized by PASL in collaboration with KLLAS, Osmania University, India. Context-based linguistic interpretation of literature presented at IJAS International Conference in University of Nevada, Las Vegas, USA. Some phases and perspectives of intonation presented at IJAS International Conference in University of Freiburg, Germany. And his national papers include Language and Opportunities in Indian Sales Market, presented in 1D National Seminar conducted at GTC, Hyderabad. Understanding and Applying the Steps in Broad Speech Analysis, presented in UGC-sponsored National Conference on Recent Advancements in Computer Science, GDC, Hyderabad. And Non-Native Learning Strategy of English Translation in India, presented in UGC-sponsored National Seminar on Effective Learning Strategies of English held at City College, Hyderabad. Language, Meaning and Inference in Poetry, presented in a national seminar conducted in GTC, Hyderabad. Compound sounds in English and Telugu, presented at National Conference on Phonetics, Theoretical Underpinnings and Research Explorations held at ISLE, Hyderabad. He has also published several papers in many international and national journals. Some of them are some aspects of grammar and phonicity, a comparison between Telugu and English, occasional papers in linguistics, in English and foreign languages, University Press, Italy, a non-native learning strategy of English pronunciation in India, published in UGC-sponsored National Seminar Proceedings on Effective Learning Strategies of English, held at City College, Hyderabad. Some Phases and Perspectives of Intonation, published International Journal of Multidisciplinary Thought. Morphosyntactic analysis of the use of English by second language learners, published in Journal of Xi'an University of Architecture and Technology. An understand status in the English used by Telugu people, published in Smart House Journal IJELIH. Sonic prominence in accordance with meaning and grammar, a linguistic study on Telugu and English, published in Usmania Papers in Linguistics. He was also bestowed several awards and has participated in many workshops and training programs. I will not take more time as everyone here is waiting for Narasuda's session. I would like to inform everyone that if you have any doubts between the sessions, please note that in the comment section and your doubts will be answered during the question and answer session at the end of today's lecture. Now, let me once again welcome Dr. P. Lakshmi Narasudatu to start the session. Please, sir.
Thank you, Ashwati. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for introducing me for this session. Okay. Yeah. What I want to speak today is generally it is a well-known thing to all of us as teachers of English. That is learning English as a foreign language. It is always a topic of interest for many teachers generally. So here, what I want to talk about is, so what are the theoretical backgrounds generally when we understand this point in terms of learning or in terms of teaching, when something is a foreign language, especially English. So what are the theoretical backgrounds? What do they say? And what are the approaches that people are following? And what could be the effective way in understanding and in terms of learning and in terms of teaching? So what could be, and what are the problems people are facing, etc., etc. It is linked to various ways. That's what I want to put in this. Um, in this session. So here, learning English language as a foreign language, a persistent pedagogical concern. This is the title of this paper. So this is generally one minute, please. Yeah. So it is linked to many things. This present topic is linked to many things. Here we can understand from the title itself, we can understand it is linked to English language and language learning and language acquisition also, and something, the concept of foreign language, what it is actually, we have to consider it. And it is also a persistent concern. Why? I'll tell you here. So language learning, when we talk about language learning, so what do the theories are saying about language learning? And how a child or a person learns language, and at what point it can be an effective learning, etc., etc. And language acquisition also very important here. All these are linked to the matter here, and something that is foreign language also here. So why I say that is a persistent concern in the sense, as long as we learn some language that is foreign, so it is a persistent matter, it is continuous. We have to put all our efforts continuously until we get access to its natural sense in terms of meaning and usage. So till then, it can be a persistent matter always. So language learning, let us understand what language learning. So in language learning, generally, it is planned teaching. We have to plan something according to the task we give, and we have to create some context. Always, context is very, very important in language teaching. And at the same time, it is a created context. We need to mind it. It is a created context, and there are some demerits when we create some context. It may give formal instructions. Teachers give formal instructions to learners, students. And it is a setting, a formal setting. So we are all aware of all these situations of what the teacher is telling and what the student is doing, etc., etc. So in a conscious way, and teachers give rules of language and grammatical rules, etc., etc. And it is all conscious process. And what students generally do is memorizing is the key element in learning generally. And what is the matter about proficiency? So is it the proficiency level? How can we say that if we compare with this acquisition of language, there is a lot of change generally. Generally, we can say that even a child for 7 or 8 years old child also can speak any language, in the sense if it is he got exposure to English in linguistically rich environment, he speaks fluently with all accent and grammaticality, etc., etc. So, but when learning, as it is a conscious process, generally memorizing is the key element, and it is a created context. So there is some confusion in order to get a full meaning and a clear usage in terms of accuracy, etc., etc. So language learning is like that. And what about, let us talk about language acquisition. In language acquisition, generally people acquire. There is no need of teaching. There's no need of a special, particular learning, etc., etc. Teaching is not necessary. Generally, teachers are there. Generally, we teach. Even if you don't teach, it is not a matter. Anyone can, if he is exposed to a linguistically rich environment, he can get the language. That is called acquisition. It is natural context. Generally, there is no need of providing any creative context. It is natural. It is not. There is no need to pay any special attention to context. So it is generally learners acquire language. So at the same time, informal social interactions. So it generally happens in informal social situations, and there is a linguistically rich environment of language. It is not a conscious process. You need not to pay much attention in learning, acquiring language. So according to Lenneberg in 1967, Biological Foundations of Language, he proposes something that is a critical period hypothesis. So even if it was long back in 1967, but still there is a point for consideration. That is what this theory says is, it is 2 to 13 years of age generally, when a child is growing up. From 2 years to 13 years, generally an estimated period. The period is called window period. And in that window period, a child can pick up language easily without conscious process, without any teaching. What he needs is just exposure to language. So he proposes something like that. And at the same time, what is the proficiency? In an earlier case, we got something in a proficiency level is something confusing. Actually, we may get proficiency, may not get, but here in language acquisition generally, native like proficiency we can get, or native proficiency we can get. So here, these 2 points are important to what I'm going to tell about what I'm going to tell. So language learning and language acquisition. So next thing is foreign language. I said English is as a foreign language. When we say something is foreign, what do we mean by foreign? Here you see, foreign in the sense, in terms of society, in terms of culture, and in terms of language, something we can call something. If we don't know about all these things, we say that it is foreign. Particularly language is linked with all these things. You see, society, culture, it is linked with the society and culture. And as a language itself, it is a foreign language. English is a foreign language for many people in India, in any country which is not English speaking country. So let us observe what are the social aspects that are linked with language, English language. When we say thank you, so depending on social situations, you are welcome, we can say, we can answer, well, you are welcome, depending, because, yeah, we are accepting, but thank you. Sometimes we may say no problem, because it is not necessary to say thank you for this little thing. No worries, don't mention it. We usually use the don't mention it in Indian context generally because the influence of mother tongue generally. We can also say my pleasure. We can say anytime, thank you anytime, accepting. It was the least I could do. Glad to help, sure. And thank you. When someone says thank you, sometimes we may also say thank you because there is mutual help. So these are all social situations. And so we have many things like this. So this is a socially language, English language is any language is linked to social situations generally like that. And the wordings, the choice of wordings depends on the context of situation, whether we have to say you are welcome, whether we have to say no problem, etc., etc. So social aspects are important. At the same time, cultural aspect. I talked about just before some time. I talked about foreign means it can be social aspects. We don't know social aspects. That's why something is foreign. We don't know cultural aspects. That's why something is foreign. And we don't know language also. That's why it is foreign. All these things are linked. So here I talked about social aspect, and now I'm talking about cultural aspects. You see, the cultural aspects when we say generally, idiomatic expressions are culturally much associated. When we say cloud nine, he's on cloud nine. He is very, very happy. The cloud nine, yeah, it is an idiomatic expression sometimes. When we learn language, it is something people generally think that when something is foreign language, what is cloud? Cloud means something, it refers to cloud in the sky, and nine refers to a digit. So what is cloud nine? This is confusion generally. So people generally try to get the meaning from the wordings, but it is a cultural aspect. There is no clear connection. It is linked to culture. That's why the wordings are formed like that. At the same time, say the second example, at sixes and sevens, a confused state. This situation is at sixes and sevens in the office. So these are all cultural aspects. So we need to know some kind of a culture also in order to understand these points. So here, last one, you see, Duns. Duns, actually, it came from John Duns Scotus, a Scottish philosopher and scholar, actually, in 13th century around. So he was actually, his students are called Duns in a ridiculous manner by others. Actually, Duns means what kind of meaning it has acquired is dull, obstinate person, impervious to new learning, blockhead, incapable of learning or scholarship. So the students of Duns Scotus are called Duns. The same way you see, it is culturally linked. Sometimes in the past, in the history, it happened so. And it came into language like this. The students of Duns Scotus are ridiculously called Duns as a fool. So in the same way, if you observe, many Telugu speakers generally understand Paramanandaya Sishyulu. Paramananda is issue. We generally say in a ridiculous manner. Some people, Paramananda is issue laga unno, something like that. The same way in English, it is something. So the word dance has a historical significance, okay, but Paramananda is issued whether it has its historical significance or not, or maybe a mythical story, we don't know. But it came into existence as something that is linked to culture, like an idiomatic expression, something like that. So here, what I want to say is cultural aspects there, because all these cultural aspects, social aspects, language, all these are a combination to be understood as in natural way. So natural way is related to acquisition. What I'm trying to say is natural way is related to acquisition. Language learning is somewhat, if something is foreign, if you don't get some kind of cultural aspects and exposure to cultural aspects, exposure to social aspect and exposure to language, so we still lag behind in these terms. And we can say that is a foreign language always. Okay, now let us understand what the second language and foreign language. So here you see the two circles and the meeting point intersection. We can understand L1, that is mother tongue, and EFL, that is English as a foreign language. So EFL, when we say foreign language, foreign, when I say foreign, we have society, culture, and language. And at this point, exactly, L2, the intersection, we can understand that there is some cultural aspects we know, and some social aspects we know, and some language aspects we know. So the intersection is something called L2 maybe. So because we have got some acquaintance with that language, but not fully. So it can be said to be second language. L1 is first language, mother tongue. And when we get to everything generally as naturally, so it never language, English as foreign language. We cannot say English as foreign language. And you after acquiring everything, if we acquire something like that, all cultural aspects and social aspects and language aspects. So anyway, all these things when we say social, cultural, and language aspects, all these three, you see, in broad term, we can say something that is context. There is cultural context, there is situational context, there is social context. All these contexts are important in language learning, usage of language. So social, cultural, situational, every situation we need to speak, to form meanings, to ask something, we need a situation. And that might be associated with cultural aspects and social aspects. At the same time, linguistic context is also important in understanding language. That's the main important factor. All of us do as teachers of English, but the emphasis is something on linguistic aspect. Why I tell you, context and meaning. Here you see, I saw somewhere something like this. So let us observe something, a mathematical logic there. The mathematics, it is generally combination of rules, generally, mathematics. You see what happens. If A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then A is equal to C. This is mathematical logic. Definitely. If A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then A must be equal to C. In the same metaphorical logic, in the same mathematical logic, if I apply to language as a rule without context, as a rule has no context. That's what I mean to say here. If I apply the mathematical logic to something like here, you see, love is rose, something. A is equal to B. Love is rose. Rose is red. Red is danger. Hence, love is danger. Something like A is equal to B, B is equal to C, like that. If you see. So on opinions, we may say, yeah, love is danger. Is it something like a poetic, metaphorical? It is seems to be metaphorical and a poetic, something like that. The same thing if we say in a different manner, you say metaphorical logic. Love is rose, rose is white. We can say rose is always not red. It can be white also, it can be yellow also. So in general meanings, yeah, in general associations of meanings generally, white is associated with peace. So love is rose, rose is white, white is peace. So hence love is peace. Whether love is danger or love is peace is the matter here, you see. So why I am telling this one is any meaning, whether love is danger, whether love is peace, it dependent on context actually. That's why we cannot apply mathematical logic to language. Mathematical logics never change. They are fixed, but language changes according to meaning, according to context. So that is the importance of context always. The choice of words is dependent on context or situation, dependent on cultural association. In some cultures, white is peace, generally. So this is why I want to say, what is the connection between context and meaning? Is context is important in determining the meaning of expressions. That is the important thing. Why I'm telling here, you see, I'm bringing the topic from language learning, language acquisition. You see, in language learning, we have the context that is created. In language acquisition, we have the context that is natural. And the context is important in understanding the meaning, choice of words, etc., etc., etc. That's the connection. I go further. This is now into language aspects. Michael Halliday, eminent functional linguist, he proposes something like that: language operation under context in systemic functional grammar. So this is the broad area you see, that is context. Under context, meanings are semantics is operated. If we divide language into strata, we have semantics, lexicography, phonology, and phonetics. So what happens according to his theory, what happens is context. In context, we make meanings and then semantics is developed. Context makes necessary for conversation. It makes necessary to form meanings. And meanings further are realized in our grammar, in our wordings. That is called lexicography. And further, the grammar is realized in phonology in terms of tones, falling tone, rising tone, etc., etc. And the way of the changing pitch movements make meanings. So, and phonetics also. So this is the structure of, this is called stratification of language according to systemic functional theory. So here you see, here also, what the emphasis is on context. Next point, functional perspective. What happens according to this stratification? So speech function at the level of semantics, under context, speech functions are formed. I want to make a statement, and at the level of grammar, it becomes declarative clause. And at the level of tone, I use falling tone. Statement, that is, I want to attend a meeting. It is declarative clause because subject and finite. Subject plus finite. And In expression level, I use tone one that is falling tone. So in order to make my meaning exactly, that's how language operates according to his stratification theory. So it's no questions, interrogative, rising tone we use. So this is how generally happens according to his functional theory: context, semantics, lexicogrammar, phonology, and phonetics. The same is here given like statement, functions of language, statement, questions, commands, offers, and at the level of grammar, we call declarative clauses, interrogative clauses, and imperative clauses, etc., etc. So let us come again about the same thing: acquisition versus learning. The theory. Just now we talked about this theory. Let us understand what. In acquisition, generally context, in context, we make meanings and wordings and expressions. So wordings are lexicogrammar, meanings are semantics, expression is phonetics and phonology. So here, this is acquired language generally operates like that. But in learning what we do, in learning what we do, we search for, we don't have a context actually. We try to learn something without context generally. It happens. There is no another way. We need to learn like that only. But where we begin, we don't begin from the level of meaning. We begin from the level of wordings generally. Any class of English, if it is a foreign language class, learning English as a foreign language class, we begin from words first. So we start from words and we go up for the meaning, and we have no a context which is exactly gives clue to the meaning. Actually, you see, context gives access to meaning. That is the theory. But here, wordings give access to meaning. That is in learning process. What happens in learning, that is the point here. But when learning, you see, Halliday 2004, he said that grammar and vocabulary are not two separate components of language. They are just the two ends of single continuum. So grammar and vocabulary, they are not two separate. So in the sense, grammar and vocabulary, that is a lexicogrammatical statement, that is wordings. You see, we learn from wordings. We try to make meaning according to, in the chart, I have shown it to you, wordings, and it is going up for meaning. So, but the wordings are with grammar or without grammar? That's the question many times. So according to Halliday, what he says, grammar and vocabulary are not two separate things, because words have grammar. We are just trying to make meaning, or without, with grammaticality or without grammar. That's the point of observation. Why this observation came, I will tell you. I have observed some students like this many times after learning, even they are graduate students. After learning, I mean, at least spending at least 8 to 10 years in education, 8 to 10 years with English with a little exposure. I mean, mediocre exposure. Because we don't have such kind of a environment here in India. I saw something like this, you see. I need dash in my life. Many people came with answer, happy. Whether I need happiness, whether I need happy, whether I need happily is the matter. Actually, because words have grammar, people know the word happy. Whether we have to use happy, happiness, happily, they don't know. Many people, they don't know. So this is where, because people are understanding wordings, they are starting from wordings, they are going up to the meaning, but they are ignoring the grammar of the words. That's the point. That's the task, that task will be of teachers. So in order to make that point, in order to notice that point. The second example, you should dash your house. You should. They know, many people know beauty, beautiful. They know. They don't know beautify. You should beautify your house. They don't know beautify. So this is what happens because all these words are similar in its content, but grammar is different. So that's the point what I want to make here. So people are learning students generally ignore that the point that words have grammar. It is an important point that teachers need to take attention, pay attention. At the same time, generally what happens at the level of clauses. Just before this, I talked about the level of vocabulary, what happens generally when something is a foreign language, especially. At the level of grammar, what happens? Using progressive form for simple form. So I go to college every day. So I'm going to college every day using like this. Using present progressive for past progressive. I have, sorry, I am going, I was going. There is no difference for many students. Why I tell here? Using present perfect form for simple past, unwanted addition of auxiliary verbs, using dynamic verbs for stative verbs. All these things generally happen. We can observe one thing. If I take Telugu, there is no distinction, clear-cut distinction between progressive form and simple form. I'm studying, I study. The two are same. I'm going to college, I go to college. There is no difference between the two. I am in college, something like that. And Rose college, there is no difference. That's why people use progressive form for simple form. In the same way, all these expressions, what I gave here, what are basic errors, all these because of linguistic interference of mother tongue, etc., etc. All these, we can observe all these things. Using present progressive for past progressive, there is no difference. Then నేను ఆడుతున్నాను in Telugu if I say. Then ఈరోజు ఆడుతున్నా. There is no grammatically, there is no change in Telugu. That's why people what do they do is they go for there is no they don't find any difference when using like this. So that is the problem. So here what I'm saying is in the you see what I'm saying is all this. So there is no specific context. What I mean to say is there is no specific context which provides accuracy towards meaning, towards its grammaticality. That's the point here. In the vocabulary and in grammar of clauses, etc., etc. There is a need of intervention of linguistic aspect exactly. We need to find where is the problem. We need to find where the problem is. Oh, because of this one, students are making mistake. If we point it out, they remember, yeah, this one. This is in Telugu, this is like this, but in English, there are two variants. When people know, when learners know like this, they focus on accuracy. That's the point what I want to say. Here, what I want me to say is, this is the context. This is the context of linguistic context, what I mean to say. When context naturally, when created context cannot give proper access to meaning, then we need to find something that provides access to meaning, exactness, accuracy. So that's why we need to bring linguistic context as the form of context in teaching and learning process. That's what I want to say. In created context, we create a situation. So there is, you need to go to a bank. There are some people are sitting. You need to ask for a form, etc., etc. We give some situation to speak. They try to speak. The context involves, gives them some kind of involvement, provides. But The context should also give accuracy towards meaning. So now, which is the context? Apart from the general context we have given, we need additional context that which provides access to exact meaning. That's the point. That's why we need to bring linguistic context also in order to find the problems and in order to understand, in order to make them free in terms of using language. So how do we correct all these things generally? Typological similarities we have to focus on. Contextual synonymy of clauses, because linguistic context, when we say, we can take mother tongue or known language to teach foreign language. So English is foreign language here. So contextual synonym of clauses. For example, you see, నేను in Telugu, you say నేను కాలేజ్కి వెళ్తున్నాను. It can be simple, daily regular activity. It can be present continuous activity. So there are two. There are synonymous in Telugu. So we can focus on something like that here in order to remove that problem. We can find some typological similarities and dissimilarities between languages. There are works on typological differences at the level of grammar, at the level of pronunciation, etc., etc. We can take all these things into account to create linguistic context. So we can compare finiteness comparison when we teach grammar. Because why I say that, the context we provide, that is a created context, it cannot give proper and full, a clear-cut message to students. So it cannot provide accuracy. That's why we need to bring linguistic context in order to give accuracy in terms of meaning. So finding common source of errors, I mean, linguistically, we can understand what are the common source. Why the people, all the students, majority of the students are making the same kind of mistake. Why? This is because of something. This is because of interference of mother tongue maybe. But the same mother tongue can be used as linguistic context to remove that problem. That's the point what I want to say is. At the level of pronunciation, I talked about vocabularies and I talked about clauses, clause level. Now I'm coming to pronunciation aspect, you see. In segmental features, generally, phonemes, sounds, we can focus on typological similarities. So here you see, ka, ga, ba, ba. These are generally found in Indian languages. There is no problem with these sounds. So teaching all the sounds, all the 44 sounds may not be important in the beginning. Teaching typological dissimilarities, we focus. There are very few. Something like z, z, zh. These are not found in Indian languages. That's why all the other things are known to students. They are internalized through other language. They are mother tongue, etc., etc. But these sounds are not familiar to them. So we need to focus on particularly these sounds. And later, those sounds are anyway they know. At the same time, coming to intonation patterns, we have generally falling tone, basic tones, rising tone, fall, rise, and rise, fall is this. And we need to focus on operational differences in languages. You see, when we teach English language, typologically, it is different from Telugu or any other Indian language. So that difference is when we teach some person who is who has mother tongue, Telugu has mother tongue, then we can focus on something intonation patterns. What are the intonation patterns of Telugu? Also, we can bring it because I worked on it. That's why I found something. I will talk about it. You see, what happens in intonation? In English intonation, generally, if we take a yes/no type questions, rising tone is used. Many theorists, Amike Halliday, Paul Tench, all these phoneticians, they said that rising tone starts from a focus in the sense, a focus of information. Here, do you really like to go to the party? This is the sentence, yes, no type question. Here, the speaker, because of the situation, because of the context, he wants to focus on really. So the rising tone starts from the word really, and it continues till the end, till the tail, it continues. It doesn't fall down. Actually, it happens in English. You really like to go to the party. You really like to go to the party. So really, from really, it straightly goes up. But what happens in Telugu, you see? నువ్వు నిజంగా వెళదాం అనుకుంటున్నావా పార్టీకి? You see, you can focus, you see. The focus is nizanga, like really in the first case. నువ్వు నిజంగా వెళ్దాం అనుకుంటున్నావా పార్టీకి? Nizanga is the focus. But where do we understand that it is a question? Partiki, he. You see, you observe in Telugu and many speakers in English, they apply this as the same thing. What do they say? What do they do? You know, in English, do you really like to go to the party? People say like that, but they don't use it as it is in English. You really like to go to the party? It is going up actually from really. But because of influence of Telugu, they say, you really like to go to the party? Party. The final syllable generally gets tonic accent of rising tone. You see, focus and questioning. Questioning is on, in Telugu, always yes, no type question. Rising, if you use rising in Telugu, it is always rising is on the final syllable in a tone group generally. That's what people always apply in English. If we focus, yeah, it is the influence of Telugu, but it is English is different. You see, that's what you are doing. If we focus like that, they can change it. So when we say that, that is linguistic context. In terms of language, in operation, we talk about this, that becomes linguistic context. Linguistic context in language at the level of grammar, at the level of vocabulary, at the level of pronunciation, all these things. So contextualizing for learning, how to contextualize this thing. Context gives, becomes a situation, and we can use the situational context, and at the same time we can use linguistic context. The linguistic context can be from English as foreign language. From English also we can take linguistic context. What is the difference between act and action and active and activate? Those are based on act as the basic root word. So in the language of foreign language itself, we can give something like linguistic aspect. At the same time, if it is not, even then if we are facing some problem, we can also bring the mother tongue into context and the differences, finding the differences between these two. And it gives a way to understand, oh, this is the problem what I am making. This is the mistake I am making. That's the point. So here, what the context is doing, context is creating a need for conversation. And the situation is creating a meaning, a need to speak something in terms of meaningful sentences. And we use choices linguistically, we use words, we choose some words in order to be apt towards its meaning. And accuracy, when do we get accuracy? We have to use in teaching and learning process. If we need accuracy, we need to pay attention to foreign grammaticalities, linguistic context, in terms of foreign language and in terms of mother tongue also, because it is a created context, not natural one, according to theorists, according to language acquisition, according to the problems in learning language. All these, after understanding all these, we need access from words to meaning. that is dependent on linguistic context. That's what I wanted to talk about. So in conclusion, I want to talk about the contextual synonym of clauses we can focus on when we teach, when students are learning. We can bring context in order to learn. Using linguistic typology, words and word classes. Word classes are nothing but action, active, actively, etc. We generally say noun, adjective, adverb, all these things, but we generally talk about them in a different context. Words are different and grammar is different. Like that, we generally in many classes that is being done like that. That's why. Also, focus on dissimilar pronunciation features. What is going on? Why this is dissimilar because of this problem. So all these things, when we approach like this, so based on principle of economy, like Whitney in 1877, he said that something principle of economy in the sense with few rules we can understand many things. This is a principle of economy. So we can delete some things which are not important, which are redundant. We can delete some things like that. I said pa, ba, ma. All these sounds are generally well aware to the, I mean, they are all people, students all know all these sounds. So there is no problem. It is not necessary particularly to teach those sounds. So we can delete them and then we can use this principle of economy. And finally, theoretical versus contextual. All these theories, what they say is context is important in various ways. So we need to understand context and we need to bring linguistic context into teaching and learning process on this topic. And thank you to all of you.
Something happened to mine. I don't know how to do change it. Like, thank you, sir. It was a very informative and insightful session. You opened up our minds to a whole new aspect of linguistic possibilities when it comes to learning English as a foreign language. Thank you, sir, once again. The session is now open for questions and answers. Any queries, please ask her. Participants can ask their questions to any doubts they have at this time. Please use the valuable time.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, sir. Can I ask my question?
Yes.
Yes, yes, please. Sir.
Okay, sir, that was an excellent explanation of the things of English as a second language or a foreign language and the difference between acquisition and learning and all. Sir, as I am doing my PhD on error analysis, sir, so my one question is that how far error analysis of syntactic grammatical errors is useful in finding the sources, common sources, as you told that we have to find out what is the common source of errors in the students, why they are committing some similar errors in syntactical grammar, sir, while in the writing skills only, not in the spoken skills. Thank you so much, sir.
So you have asked me what exactly now. Tell me one second.
Sir, my question is how far error analysis
Ah,
of the syntactical grammatical aspects
ah,
is relevant to find
ah.
out the reasons of why students are making mistake in the writing skills, sir.
Okay, okay. Yeah, yeah. So just I gave aggressive to instead of a simple form. People generally Because I am going to college, just to be, before that I give an example. I'm going to college, I go to college. There is no difference in Telugu actually. So people, all many majority of the people generally make the same mistake. We can understand this is the influence of Telugu. Linguistic, that's why we need to understand what is the language of the mother tongue of the students, and generally what happens in their language, and whether it the cause for their errors in their sentences, etc., etc. So we can we got a clear access actually like that. So by understanding the majority of people what they are doing, why.
Thank you, sir. So means, sir, you are suggesting that we have to incorporate the mother language linguistic aspects also,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that
yeah,
we can explain the students where they are making the
yeah.
errors, and we can use it as a tool also to improving it.
Yes, 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 of course.
Excellent, sir. Excellent, sir. Thank you so much, sir. I'll definitely incorporate this in my thesis as a recommendation. Thank you so much, sir.
Any other queries? Please, you make use of this valuable time and ask your questions. If you are unable to ask your questions, please go ahead and write your questions in the chat box. Okay, thank you, sir. On behalf of the management and the team, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to our esteemed spokesperson, Dr. P. Lakshmi Narasimhan. Let me once again thank you so much for such a great session. Now, I would like to thank the participants for showing their interest and my colleagues for wonderfully coordinating the session. Once again, thank you all. I request you all to fill the feedback form that is provided. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Master.
Thank you a lot.